Scared of your own kids. Come here, son. Come here. 6'3", whatever. 360? 360? Let me tell you something. There's nothing I can do to handle this. Well, he don't know. Some stuff that I do know. I'm trying to tell you, I will knock down a tree, I promise you, at least one time. A tree will fall at least once, all right? But all things being equal, he could pick me up over his head, and he was doing that when he was 13, 14 years old. He picked his mom up when he was like 6 years old, 6 or 7 years old, and I'm not joking. He's strong as an ox. Why would I be afraid of my son if I've trained him, if I taught him, trained, and modeled to him the right stuff? Why would I be afraid of him? Thank you, son. I don't have to be afraid of him because we parent. And not that we're doing it perfectly, but at some point, Black Lives Matter, but hey, your responsibility matters. It matters. So, I can't remember now how long ago this was, that my wife and we all lived in St. Mary's County, and my son and I was sitting in the living room with my friend Ephraim Smith, and we were watching the TV, and this is during the Zimmerman case where a young man was killed, and this is, we're about to hear whether this guy who murdered a boy in Florida, if he was going to not just stand trial, but now is he going to be prosecuted? And so as I sit in the room with my son, who at the time, he probably was about 17 maybe at that time, I think, 16, 17 years old, maybe 4 years ago, and my friend Ephraim Smith, and we're sitting there and we're watching this case, and we see what happens, that this guy, who we later find out, this guy, he calls himself shooting criminals, he's actually a criminal himself, and we find it out later, and yet this guy gets off. And I just remember in that room feeling like, man, this world is not safe, particularly for black men. And so my heart just broke, as I remember my son just kind of standing up and just walking away, and I'm thinking, what in the world, what am I supposed to do here? What do I do, Son, come back in here, let's dialogue. And I felt like I had to give him space. And after that, we start seeing all of this stuff happen in America, and where, it's just open market right now. You can look on YouTube and you can see, black men being shot in the back, black men being shot in the car with their hands up. Here in Fairfax County, a guy walks out of his house, and this was brought to me by a white guy who told me, he said, Elwood, I need you to see this. My white friend said, you got to see this blank. He's not a Christian. He's not. He said, you got to see this blank. He shows me this guy who walks out of his house and he gets shot by the police, and it looks like he did exactly what the police asked him to do. And I just remember thinking, wow, this country is not safe. And of course we know that because of brokenness and humanity, the world's not safe anyway. But we find that for people of color, it's extremely not safe. And so I feel like to kind of open this up, I need to be clear about that. In Alexandria, Virginia, this year, there's been 4 murders. And 2 of the last 2 murders that I know of, I know their family. I know them real well. We live together, we've been, friends, and party, all this stuff. And just the hurt and pain of these parents and who I know that their kids are not here anymore because of murder on the street. That did not, by the way, happen by a policeman. Now, I'm going to jump right into this without any introduction. There's 3 things that I want to bring up right now that we really need to talk about, and one is Black Lives Matter, and that's going to come up on the screen. This whole idea of Black Lives Matter and what I'm calling Black responsibility matters as well. Oh my goodness. Y'all not ready for this today. You know, the Black Lives Matter movement started very well. I mean, I actually thought that this was a good thing because now awareness can happen in the country as it relates to injustices that are happening to people of color, particularly African Americans. And actually their statement in their motto is all Black Lives Matter. In fact, I want to read, I normally don't look at notes, but I want to read this because I think this is significant. I'm going to read what their deal is. Black Lives Matter, the movement, mission statement is, we affirm that all Black Lives Matter. I love that idea. We affirm that all Black Lives matter. Black Lives Matter is an ideology and a political intervention in a world where Black lives are systematically and intentionally targeted for demise. Then it says, it is an affirmation of Black folks' contribution to society, our humanity, and our resilience in face of deadly oppression. Let me say this. The Black Lives Matter movement started very well, but I think most of us know that it's going to take a whole lot more than a movement, a Black Lives Matter movement. Particularly when it's not just police killing Black people, but also Black people killing Black people. So I feel like I got to say it and I got to be honest about it. And part of this, and the reason I'm bringing this up, and I'm opening this kind of worm up right now, this hurt, this pain, is because if we don't lay the cards out on the table and to be objective about this whole thing, because what I see, here's what I see. People who support Black Lives Matter typically don't support police lives matter. You notice that, right? Just don't. As if police don't matter. And then of course, people, and we're going to see this in a minute, people who say all lives matter dismiss Black Lives Matter, right? And when I look on Facebook, I see like all these opposing forces happening, right? As if the reality is all lives do matter. And so, but what I am saying to a community of people of color, particularly African Americans, instead of us looking for the police help, instead of us looking for whatever system, that social system, I think we need to take control of our situation as it relates to police, helping our own family members. Yeah. I can't tell you how many people told me this week, Wood, you know what? The reason some of this stuff happens is because these parents are scared of their own kids. Wow. Now and I've heard that from several people. Am I lying? I mean, am I telling the truth about that? Scared of your own kids. Come here, son. Come here. 6'3", whatever. 360? 360? Let me tell you something. There's nothing I can do to handle this. Well, he don't know. Some stuff that I do know. I'm trying to tell you, I will knock down a tree, I promise you, at least one time. A tree will fall at least once, all right? But all things being equal, he could pick me up over his head, and he was doing that when he was 13, 14 years old. He picked his mom up when he was like 6 years old, 6 or 7 years old, and I'm not joking. He's strong as an ox. Why would I be afraid of my son if I've trained him, if I taught him, trained, and modeled to him the right stuff? Why would I be afraid of him? Thank you, son. I don't have to be afraid of him because we parent. And not that we're doing it perfectly, but at some point, Black Lives Matter, but hey, your responsibility matters. It matters.